Welcome to the Changemakers Podcast, produced by cityCURRENT and brought to you by Lipscomb and Pitts Insurance. This show shares personal stories and insight from those who are giving back and making a difference so we can learn and do the same. We cover life lessons, business advice, passion, and purpose. Now here's our host, the CEO of cityCURRENT, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the Changemakers Podcast, produced by cityCURRENT. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We have a dynamic duo, good friends of ours. You're in for a treat, a creative treat. So two creatives doing amazing things with their career, their family, so much to be able to pour good energy into our community and literally around the world with what they're doing. So we have CJ Kirkland is how you know her. She writes the River City Rising blog, but she's also Sharita Jackson, and she's married to Andre Jackson, who is a famous screenwriter and actor, Broadway extraordinaire. So how are you two doing, you two change makers?
Great.
Doing great. Glad to be here, man.
Thank you.
We're excited to share your story because, like I said, both of you are passionately pursuing your careers in the creative arts. You're doing it while balancing a family. Let's start though, CJ, on your end. Give us a little bit, because you two come from very different worlds. And so we'll talk about where you grew up, and then we'll talk about meeting and obviously where you are today. But give us a little of your background, CJ.
Okay, so Andre and I met in Los Angeles. And prior to Los Angeles, I grew up in the Bahamas. I moved here for college, for school, graduate school, and that's what took me to LA. But growing up for me was very different than Andre growing up in Arkansas. Even though I had a lot of challenges during my childhood, I look back now and that hindsight 2020 thing and realize I had a very blessed childhood. Like, even though I experienced childhood poverty at times and, some family dynamics that weren't gelling all the time, I still feel that I had a really great childhood. I also lived in the Netherlands for several years, and I actually have a sister who's a judge there now. She's still there. So I've traveled all over. I come from a very diverse background, Italian-American mother, Bahamian father. My entire family is just very multiracial, multi-ethnic. So I grew up in that bubble in the Bahamas. And I know we'll touch on this a little later, but the events that are transpiring now here in the United States, I didn't grow up with that. And not to say that the Bahamas doesn't have its issues, because it definitely does, but I was somehow shielded from that. And I have to thank my parents and my grandmother for doing such a phenomenal job, in that I look back on my childhood and go, whoa, this was pretty awesome. Even with the little cracks and dents and stuff along the way. So yeah, it was pretty neat.
Give us something that from the Bahamas, that culture that you carry with you today, whether it's an energy, a relaxed vibe, like what's something you take from the Bahamas that makes you who you are?
Andre's going to love this one. So.
Yeah, it's definitely not a relaxed vibe. She definitely didn't bring that over.
But I will say, even though it's not necessarily a relaxed vibe, but I tend to sometimes not have this urgency behind things. So for instance, if we have a project and Andre's done his part and he gives it to me, my question is, okay, well, what's the deadline? When do you need this by? Whereas if you give something to Andre, he's going to take it right away and get it. And that he's working on it right now because you gave it to him right now. So that's something that I feel I brought with me. And just to me, an overall sense of inclusion, because I remember even sitting in my classroom, I went to a really great private school, but it was such a diverse group of students in that classroom. I had teachers from Africa, I had teachers from England, Canada. I just grew up in a very diverse environment. And I feel that that's something I continue to embrace here. I mean, our friend circle is very diverse, socioeconomically, ethnically, culturally, you name it. So I feel that that's probably one of the biggest things that has carried over into my adulthood. And also specifically as far as lessons that were taught, like one thing that I carry with me from my grandmother is having watched her work as a housekeeper, and just really she owned her own home. She never quit, even when she got cancer, she got up every day, went to work, so when I'm having a kind of icky day, I do tend to think of her and say, okay, if she could push through, then I've got to find a way to push through. And that's someone who's very big in my life. And Andre maybe will talk about his grandmother a little, but and then my parents as well. I mean, my father and I used to have really great conversations when I didn't know what I wanted to do, couldn't figure out what I wanted to be in this world. He would sit with me, and sometimes he was a little stern, but he really pushed me to figure things out. And I have to say, my mom, she was really the first family member to say, you are a writer, period. And that is something that really resonates with me day in, day out, when I feel like, I've kind of fallen behind or other things have taken over and I'm not where I want to be career-wise. I'll hear my mom's voice saying, just keep at it. You are a writer. So those are just some of the things that I feel I've brought with me from the Bahamas to where I am now.
Give us one tradition maybe that you've taken from your family and made it a part of your family now.
Ooh, well, the food.
The food, but also the Bahamas is a predominantly Christian country, and we definitely incorporate that into our lives, into our home. I mean, we pray every day together. We sit down and have meals together. We bless our food together. Spirituality is always a part of whatever we do. We make big decisions in life, small decisions in life. Our faith guides us, and that's very prevalent in the Bahamas.
It
and
is.
Just
That's
in the
true.
time that I've been, it's a country that's guided heavily by their Christian values. So that's definitely a part of our lives.
Nice. Well, last question for you, CJ, and then we'll switch over to Andre's story, is talk about running, because I think that's something that's a big part of your story and life as well.
For sure. So for me, running has always been an outlet. So, those little hiccups that I kind of alluded to during my childhood, when something was going on that I couldn't control, that was a source of pain for me, I went out and I ran. And I did fairly well, pretty well, I guess, as a distance runner all the way through college. And even now, this is something we were talking about this morning, is that we still find comfort and peace in going out and getting some sort of physical activity in. So I'm still running. There are sometimes I listen to music, and sometimes, like here in Memphis, it's such a great city for runners because I won't have any music at all, and I just am taking in what's around me. We have the river and the trails, and I mean, you name it, parks, Shelby Farms. So that is definitely something that has helped me keep my mental state kind of, intact.
Yeah.
And fitness is a big part of Andre's life too. So I'm sure he'll, also speak on that. But running, yeah, you're absolutely right. It has been the one constant in my life for as long as I can remember. Even though we moved to different cities, even though, my family dynamic changed, running never changed. It's been an outlet.
I think those are important things to know yourself, where, to your point, that's a balancing point for you. Like you said, different cities, different moments in your life, and yet that was a constant to ground you, but also to help you with your mental health, to make sure that you are stable and focused and can make the best of every situation, especially being healthy. So let's go ahead and switch over to you, Andre. That's a good segment, but give us a little bit of your childhood and where you grew up. As CJ mentioned, Arkansas, but give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, I grew up over in Forest City, Arkansas, just about a half an hour drive from here. I was raised by my grandmother as well, my little sister and I. And, we grew up also poverty stricken. I didn't realize it at the time because we were so happy. And it's all I knew. Everyone around me belonged sort of to the same socioeconomic class. The only difference I ever saw is when I would go to school. And Forest City at that time was pretty segregated. We weren't that long from when there were separate high schools for Blacks and whites. And even when I was there, we had separate proms.
Wow.
We had separate homecoming courts. I was homecoming king, and I had my Black queen, and there was a white homecoming king and a white queen. And that was just how it was. But, through all that, my grandmother
set in though, like, hey, this isn't right. I mean, I know, like you're saying that
yeah.
how it was. And when you're growing up, maybe you don't think anything different, but I'm just curious, like, did it ever occur to you like, oh man, this is so weird? Or was it just part of that time and that's just what it was?
It seems so bizarre to me now. At the time, because it's all I ever knew, and no one else questioned it. The adults didn't question it, none of the other kids questioned it. The administrators at the school didn't question it. It was in the paper. It wasn't a secret to anyone in town. I never questioned it. As I got older and I realized that was not the norm, I did have lots of questions. How could this still exist in the 90s, the late 90s, that we're having two separate proms, and things have changed a lot since then. But even then, my grandmother, she made an extra effort to get me outside of that bubble, outside of being inside that little world where everything's separated based on skin color. And it opened my eyes to a lot of things. I think that eventually led to me doing the things that I'm doing today. I realized the value in diversity and how awesome and fun and interesting diversity is. And so when I graduated high school, I enlisted in the Marine Corps, and you're traveling the world. And you're experiencing not just diversity in this country, but diversity all over the globe. And the beauty in that, and how much that benefits us as a society. And then I came back here for college at University of Memphis, and I'm still transferring around because of my military status. And my senior year, I found myself not having enough credits to graduate. I didn't have enough fine arts credits. So I took a acting class because a buddy of mine who was in the Marine Corps said it's an easy A.
So up until then, you hadn't done acting, like wasn't even in your mind. It wasn't until, because what I was going to ask you is, at what point does acting kind of enter the equation? But so it's college for you after
it's
Marine.
College. I mean, I was in I was talking to I was talking to my sister about a week ago, and she said, "Oh, well, you did that play in high school." And I said, "Yeah, that was for the girls. There were tons of girls in that play." I had no
acting
desire.
to act. I was acting to impress girls.
Yeah, exactly. Can I get in on these rehearsals? Is what I wanted to know. So no, acting. Where I'm from, Jeremy, no one aspires to professionally act. It's something you do as a hobby. Because I'm from an agricultural town. There was manufacturing there. It was big in the 80s and in the 90s. The huge Sanyo plant was there that employed half our town. Half my family were farmers. So for me to even have an idea that one day I'd be on a stage singing and dancing or in front of a camera acting, it was nonsense. So it never even dawned on me that this would be something I would be interested in. But now when you talk to all my friends, they say, "Oh, dude, of course you're an actor. You were an actor from elementary school,"
But you're not just
it
an
wasn't
actor,
until college
you're a
that I
singer. I mean, you're a professional. And so I think it's funny because when you say actor, some people are like, oh, okay. But I think we've got to put it in perspective. Like, you're singing on Broadway and The Lion King and these, huge musicals. And then you're on TV shows. I mean, you're a professional actor who has an amazing voice and skill and talent, and obviously a screenwriter too. But where did the singing and all that? Because that's a whole nother level of like, okay, it's one thing to act. It's a whole nother to actually be on Broadway and be singing professionally as well.
Yeah.
Jeremy, let me quickly interject here. We had been dating for, I don't know how long enough.
Few years, I think.
And I did not know he could sing. So he doesn't sing around the house. He doesn't. Anyway, I just had to throw that in there because people ask me all the time, oh, so does he sing for you? No, he does not.
Would you like him to sing for you? That's the better question.
That's the question.
See,
Yeah.
Meredith on
Well,
my end,
yeah.
like, he sings, but he doesn't sing any of the songs that I like, so I don't really want him to sing.
Yeah, we'll work on that for our 20th anniversary. We'll come up with.
Okay.
See, this is why I love this podcast. Is you get both sides, right? Like you get the story, and then you get the interjection of, okay, but wait a second, there's more to the story.
Yeah, but please continue, Andre.
Yeah,
Continue.
and I knew you were going to bring that up too. I knew you were going to bring that up. But I grew up singing in the church. My grandmother, she was the president of our choir at church, Salem Missionary Baptist Church. And I was at every choir rehearsal, even before I was in the choir. I just had to be there because of her. And I'd be singing in the back pew, waiting on the rehearsal to be over. And then one day she said, "You should be in the choir. You have a nice voice." And my father was a very good singer, as well as my grandmother was too. And I just thought that everyone could sing because everyone in my family could sing. I have an uncle here who was ambassador to the United States for music. And he's from here in Memphis. He used to teach at Kirkland. And so singing was never something that I thought, at least me singing, was never something that I thought was special until I went to the academy where I studied acting professionally and realized that everyone cannot sing.
No.
Everyone can't sing. And,
I would say most people cannot sing.
Most
Especially we talk about
people
actors.
cannot
Like we can fake it, but there's a whole different level of like, there's faking it, and then there's Broadway, and there's a huge span in between.
Yeah. So I mean, when I got there, they definitely helped me understand my voice and how to use my voice and techniques and things like that, so that I could do this professionally and not just rely on my God-given talents. But I started in the church, and from there I went to the academy, and they really honed all those skills, acting skills. It's a conservatory, so everything acting related. I mean, from dealing with masks and body movement and singing and acting, all that stuff all together. So that really honed all those skills that I'm using now all the time.
But that's an important piece of the equation too that people don't see is how much sweat equity you've put into your career to developing it. It wasn't like, oh, magically you were just found and thrust onto Broadway or into TV shows. This is something that you have seriously poured your heart and soul and taken it very serious to be a professional to get to that level. One last question for you, and then we'll talk about you two meeting, is how did your service in the Marine Corps change you or help give you a foundation for success for what you're doing now?
Yeah, the discipline that's required, it's mandatory in the Marine Corps, as it is in every branch of our service. You really have to have a disciplined mindset. It can't be an option. If it's something that's serious to you, you have to pursue it. You have to pursue it with everything you have. So that's definitely a big part of it. But also, the confidence that you gain from being a member of the military. Once, for me, I was just having this conversation the other day with someone. Once you pass what was, for me, one of the most mentally challenging parts of my life, after that, you understand that whatever I put my mind to doing, I can accomplish it. So CJ, she says all the time, I have no quit in me.
What we say is he ain't got no quit in him.
Yeah. Well, it's because, once I feel like I really want to do something, and I'm not the kind of person that I want to do everything. But when I set my mind to doing something and I dedicate myself, once again, dedication, I dedicate myself to doing something, I'm going to do it. And I understand that it's not going to happen overnight, just like you said. It's not going to be easy. As a matter of fact, most things in life that are worth having are not easy to attain. So I'm there for the long haul. And I've loved this profession since the first day I started doing it in college. And through all the ups and downs, I've remained consistent. I've poured everything into it every single day. It's always something, even if I'm not actively working on it, I'm thinking about it all the time because it's a passion.
One last question it dawned on me I want to ask before we switch over and talk about how you met. So we're going to continue this on. for you being an actor, how does that help you? Because being an actor, you have to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And I think for most people that can be a difficult thing, but for actors, that's part of the requirement is you have to literally immerse yourself in someone else to become that character, to become that person. How does that help you with just dealing with people, dealing with society, understanding, looking at things from a different perspective? How does that help and change you?
It's just like you said, it's looking at things from a perspective other than your own and empathizing with people. I mean, everything I do, everywhere I go, my sister just said this a couple of weeks ago. She said, he's always watching and paying attention. And
very true.
I'm a lover of people. I love human beings. I think we're fascinating. We're so complex. Everyone has a different story, yet we're all bound together with this same oneness. We want the same things out of life. We love our children. We want to have happiness. We want to have great health. We want all these things. But at the same time, we're so unique. So I do it professionally, but that doesn't mean that the average person walking down the street can't take a moment out of their life, take the time to understand what someone who's very different from them may be going through, the feelings that they may feel. I've portrayed everything from a lion to a FBI agent, but I'm neither of those things. But I just imagine what it must feel like to be that thing or that person in that moment. And it gives me a great sense of empathy and understanding for what other people go through. And I think if we all did that, just in life, not necessarily on stage or in front of a camera, the world would be a better place. I think that we would all find more commonalities within one another than differences.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
And definitely, if I can quickly add, Jeremy, that Andre was such a big force in my life as far as telling me and teaching me, look beneath the surface, because that is one cultural thing I have to kind of backpedal. In the Bahamas, I grew up, you just said what was true. It didn't matter
they keep it real.
if it hurt someone's
100.
feelings. Yeah, I always say, but it's the truth. And I remember Andre saying, he was that Southern gentleman, and he said, well, just because it's true doesn't mean you say it. And so that was just one element of this lesson for me, this life lesson of looking beneath the surface. So he has taught me definitely to really touch on that empathy, sympathy, see someone not for surface value, but what else might be going on in their life that is causing them to act or react a certain way. So I have to give him a lot of credit for helping me grow in that area.
Yeah, really. That helps your writing too, because that deepens your source and your purpose in your writing. So I'll throw it to either one of you, but just talk about you two meeting and obviously your family now with Luke, and just talk about your family. So talk about meeting and your family.
Yeah, Andre, yeah. You're better at the story than I am.
The story.
You can tell it, and then she'll just poke the holes in it.
Yeah. Exactly. So we met in LA, like she said earlier, and she moved into the apartment building where I lived. Now my best friend, who also lived maybe 2 buildings down from me, would come to my house because he didn't have a television. So
struggling artist.
Yeah, struggling artist. No judgment. I'm lucky I have a television.
It's a typical LA story. So
yeah.
LA story.
Yeah.
So you share resources, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he would go to my house during the day when I was at work, and he'd watch television. And CJ just moved to our building, and the building she was moving from, in that building, their trash room was on the bottom floor through these big double doors. Well, in my building, bottom floor, double doors, that was my apartment. So she just assumed it was the same layout, and she burst in with all these bags of trash and boxes. And my friend was there watching television, and he was more than happy to help her take out her trash. So when I came back to the house, he told me, oh man, Andre, there's this woman in this building. She is gorgeous. And we lived in
just gave you a whole bunch of trash.
I said, yeah, taking a whole.
Well, and then my question was, well, why was the door unlocked? You know, because I just swung the door open.
If you knew this friend, you'd understand. So anyway, he will come over there every day looking for this girl. And I said, man, I don't know what girl you're talking about. I haven't seen this girl that you described at all in this building. And then one day she knocked on the door and I answered it and opened it, and I was just floored. This beautiful woman was standing there, and immediately I knew that this had to be the girl that he was talking about. And she said, oh, I just came to tell your friend, thank you. He helped me with all my stuff. And I just wanted to give, I think she was giving him a Starbucks gift card or something like that, you know. And so I said, oh, well, he didn't live here, but I live here. My name's Andre. And she goes, oh, nice to meet you. But in my defense, for weeks, I tried to play matchmaker and get them together. And one day she said,
tried to help your friend. You were
tried.
Wow, you're such a good friend.
I tried, but she eventually said, you know, I'm not interested. He seems like a great guy, but I'm just not, I'm not looking for a relationship. I said, okay, no problem. But she and I, by then, had struck up a genuine friendship. So we were friends, like seriously best friends for a long time. And then one day she said to me, she says, you were going to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And she says, well, I'm going to miss you. Here's the keys to my car. Don't forget to move it for street sweeping. And I love you. And you love me too. You just don't know it yet. And she drove away and left me with that for like a month. And I was calling everybody. I was calling my friends, calling my family. Do I love this girl? What is love? Because I'd never been in a relationship like that before. And certainly not with a person like that before. But she was
awesome.
right.
That's like
she was 100% right. Yeah. She came back.
And peace out. I'm in love with you. You're in love with me. I'm leaving. Move my car.
Look,
exactly.
Jeremy, I needed to make sure that that car got moved and it didn't get towed on street sweeping day. So listen, here's the deal. I love you. You love me. Make sure the car gets moved.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And the rest
one way to definitely build some trust right out of the gate.
Really.
That's
right.
Right
out of the gate.
That's right. Yeah.
So where are you now? So obviously you live in Memphis, but you've got homes elsewhere. So you spend time in New York and Los Angeles, and doing what you all do, you have the ability, but it's also too on your end kind of the responsibility of being in different places. And so you have a different family dynamic where you're both pursuing careers. Mm-hmm. What you do, you have to be literally on either coast at different times. And so you've got homeschooling as a part of this equation. So talk about now just kind of where you are and balancing all these different dynamics.
Yeah, well, I spend most of my time professionally either in LA or New York. But this is our home, and this has always been home to us. We purposely decided to move here when we were looking for where we're going to get our next place. And we decided to get a place here in Memphis because we knew we wanted to start a family. We knew we wanted to be in a place that was away from the hustle and bustle, the craziness of the coasts. Somewhere where we could recharge, stay grounded to who we are spiritually, emotionally, and maintain these relationships with people who meant a lot to us. So we just love Memphis. And I can't imagine ever not living here in some capacity. But right now it's home. In LA and New York, that's work. And CJ started, she could speak about this, but she started homeschooling our 9-year-old a couple of years ago because it just fit our family, our lifestyle.
Talk about that, CJ, in terms of you and your writing and homeschooling, obviously, and just balancing those different pieces with Luke.
Yeah, so on the writing end, when you and I met and you helped guide me, to really figure out how I wanted to bring all of these ideas in my head and put them in black and white. And so I really enjoyed writing stories, working with nonprofits and just really telling other people's narratives, not so much my own, because that, is what blesses me. Just hearing what they've experienced, being able to push that out in a positive way. And then also with the production company, we have, doing a lot of the editing, and, I've done some ghostwriting. So there are all these pieces to the writing puzzle that, I've tried to just kind of keep intact along the way. There have been times, that I've had to stop, hit the pause button on my writing because family came first. And Andre was working on a big project and Luke needed to be homeschooled. So I would hit the pause button. We have been homeschooling for a couple of years and that's going well. And it just made sense for us. He was in traditional school for a couple of years. We loved his teachers. It was an amazing place for him. But the more we started to travel and the more Andre was being moved around for these different projects, even though his base still is New York, but he, have to fly out to LA for something, or Atlanta. And I think he was in Canada at one point, so it just made sense for us to try this homeschooling thing, and just kind of see where it led us. And it's definitely the best fit right now for our family. Luke loves it. He's always learning. Yeah, Luke loves it.
Luke loves it.
He's always learning. So no matter where we are, it's a lesson. There's a lesson there. And as far as balancing on my end, the reality is I have days that I just feel I am on top of the world. Luke has listened to me. We have breezed through everything we needed to breeze through. I mean, it is just marvelous today. And then there are some days I call Andre and he answers the phone like, I can't do this. It's just that happens. But then you kind of get back up and keep it moving. And also quickly, just to touch on that, I want to say that for me, if I did not have a great group of people around me from the homeschool community, from the nonprofit community, professional mentors that really just inspire me to keep going and encourage me to not give up when I hit these little roadblocks, I really, it would be a much more difficult journey for me. So that has been a blessing in itself, just here in Memphis, where I've been able to tap into these networks professionally and personally and take them with me wherever I go.
And I think that's so critical, especially with what we're dealing with right now with COVID-19 and just, quarantining and social isolation in many cases. Having that network in place so that you can call. You've already established those relationships. So even though you might be distant physically, you can still maintain the mental connection and go through Zoom and these online platforms, and you can still find the energy for people to still pour into you, which I think is so, so important for mental health and just to be able to make it through. Because like you said, you're going to have good days, but you're also going to have a lot of bad days. And to know that you're loved and that people care for you and have your back and will encourage you, that will help you make it through the days that are a little bit low or dark.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned the production company, but I think it's cool because now you two really are working together, both as writers and production company partners, if you will. You've got, you mentioned, hit the pause button and stop, but Stop is a production that you all have done, which I've seen it, and it's amazing. And I'll let you kind of share the story, Andre, because it's relevant for what we're dealing with at the same time. There's so many moments where I'm like, oh wait, this could happen and this could happen and this could happen. And then all of a sudden, like, it goes this direction, but it's an amazing story of you playing an officer with a family and you pull over someone. And I'll let you kind of tell the story, but there's a lot of twists and turns that are really cool. And it's just a very powerful story. So talk about you two as a production company and working together, and then talk about Stop.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that, by the way. We realized a long time ago that we complement each other in a lot of ways professionally, just like we do in our personal lives. CJ is a fantastic writer, and I started writing screenplays really because I was looking for an outlet to be creative because I wasn't working and I had all these ideas, and I'm a lover of cinema. And we sat down together over breakfast at Sunrise, Memphis, here, one of our favorite places. And before we knew it, we'd gone, it maybe 2 or 3 hours. We were just going back and forth with these ideas about a series. And that's when it really clicked that I have my best writing partner right here in front of me every day. And we'd never taken advantage of that. People had told us that for years, but because her writing is so different from the things that I was doing, I never saw the correlation. I didn't see how one could help the other really at all. But that one breakfast at Sunrise, we sort of established unintentionally established our production company right there. And so I said, I'm gonna take this a step further. I'm gonna see if I can develop this, and I want you to help me with it. So I'd write stuff, and I'd give it to her, and she'd edit it, or she'd say, "Oh, this doesn't flow quite right." And before we knew it, we had a script. We showed the script around to some folks, found a director who was really passionate about it. We cast it, we filmed it, we put it out there for the world to see, and it was incredibly successful. I'm so blessed, and I'm just so grateful for all the success the film has had over the last year. And for the film itself, Stop, it's the name of it. It's a film that's really about assumptions that we make. As you said, there are a lot of times where you think the story is going to go this way and it completely goes another way. And it's not just to try to do some sort of mind trickery with the audience, but it's to show us how we make these prejudgments on people, on situations that oftentimes are just dead wrong. Another thing that it touches on is the amount of stress and the responsibility that our men and women in uniform are under all the time. There's a character in it who is a former police officer, and we meet him at the lowest point in his life. And it's a culmination of the personal and professional stress that he's endured in his career. And he meets my character, who's also a man in uniform, a current police officer. And they realize they have so much more in common than you initially realized in the beginning. And though the former police officer's past was difficult, and he sees it as possibly a waste or meaningless, you realize the impact that work and that sort of service, when done with purity of heart and purpose, what the service that it does to the world and to the community. Now, it happens in the story in a microcosm between these two characters, but it's really a metaphor for life. And, you being one of these people, I'd say, Jeremy, you give, sometimes without the expectation or the awareness of, is it ever going to come back my way? And that's not why you give, but you want your life to mean something. You want your life to have purpose. And oftentimes our lives have so much purpose, though we don't realize it. So it's a lot of those themes. I'm really proud of the work that we did with the film, and we're working on another one right now that touches on a lot of those same themes, and a whole lot more. It's a much bigger project. And the production company so far has just grown so rapidly, and I'm just so excited. It's one of the most exciting things going on for us right now.
Well, and I love the way you articulate the film Stop, because to your point, you get to see the ripple effect play out in a way that you would have never expected it necessarily going in. It's really cool. Right. On both ends, you get to see that purpose and the ripple effect.
Yeah.
The cool thing is, by having a production company, I think as an actor, especially, it's always tough because you're almost at the whim isn't the right word, but it's like you have a hard time controlling your own career because you have to get through like a casting director and then this and then that. And, there's so many reasons why they could choose you or not you. And, you walk in and there's 10,000 people that look just like you, and they choose one that's a little taller than you or a little smaller than you. And so many times you feel like, man, I have no control over my own career, but yet a production company where you can literally take control and then work together in tandem is a really powerful way for you to take control of your own career and destiny. Talk about that in terms of what that means for the two of you working together, like you said, but also too, the trajectory that it now puts you on, where you have control in a really cool way to tell these powerful stories.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, as an actor, you're especially when you first start out, unless you're the star of something, you're the last consideration. You're the last piece of the puzzle, is who we're going to get to play this part. And you can get or lose a part based on a variety of issues. When we started our production company, when we had that meeting at Sunrise, we were coming off the back of me losing, having gone through all the auditions, all the tapings, meeting the directors, being cast, and losing several projects because the project just fell apart, or the executives decided they want to rewrite the whole thing. I lost those two parts, and they were life-changing opportunities. And that frustration just bubbled over to me wanting to have some sort of control over my career. So what happened was I started writing for myself. I started thinking, well, what are the stories that I want to tell that I never get an opportunity to tell? And what are the roles that I'd like to play that frankly rarely ever exist, especially for people of color, unfortunately. So yes, writing myself, producing my own films, I can tell those stories that, you know, that you rarely get a chance to tell as an actor.
Yeah.
Rarely.
CJ, let's flip it to you. What's something that you want everyone to know about you and your writing?
I was thinking about that actually as Andre was speaking. What I feel we've gotten to, the place we've gotten to, is how do we make the world different using the gifts that are within us, that God has placed in us. So for me, the writing part of it, you know, I struggled for a long time. And if you speak to friends of mine that have known me for 25, 30 years, you know, they'll say that there was always some indication that this is where I would end up. And so really what I want to do with my writing is use it as best as I can to somehow make a difference in this world as a whole, in the life of someone else. You know, I never know who is going to read my work. This is something that Andre, he laughs at me because every time I write something, I'll say, well, I guess maybe 2 people will read it. And that's, you know, that's who was meant to read. Like, I never feel that anyone is going to read it, but it doesn't matter. I'm still going to put all of my heart into it. It doesn't matter to me how many people may or may not read it. I'm going to give it my all, because to me, this is the gift with which I've been blessed. And I have to use it wisely. I have to use it to instill, you know, hope and faith and just goodness, you know, not abuse it or not let it sit dormant. And that's something I was actually talking to a friend of mine, you know, about everything that's going on and the protest. And, you know, really, we believe, okay, we are finally getting to a better place. You know, voices are being heard. And she felt guilty because she said, well, I'm not on the front lines of any of these protests. And I said, well, neither am I. And Bernice King, you know, Dr. King's daughter, made a statement. She said, not all of us are meant to be on the front line with a megaphone. And I told her, I said, use your gifts to make a difference, even in this movement. You know, even in the Black Lives Matter movement, there are artists. You could paint a beautiful portrait and someone will stop and reflect on that and go out and make a donation, you know, because this portrait or this, you know, painting has made such an impact on how they now see Black lives or see Black culture. And there's actually an amazing gallery in Orange Mound called The Complex that, you know, presents all of these really thought-provoking pieces. So whatever your gift, that is what you use to make this world a better place. You know, and that's where I am with my writing. You know, would I love to be a best-selling author? Of course. I mean, I don't know any writer who doesn't want that. But in the day-to-day, what matters most to me is whomever is reading what I write, it somehow pulls on them, you know, to take that with them and make a difference in someone else's life, or at least stop and think about what's going on. And, you know, even for us, like with this month, you know, it's Pride Month. And we talk about just being a support and being a safe space for our friends who are part of the LGBTQ plus community. You know, we want them to know, hey, you can come to our home, you can laugh with, you know, it's a safe place. And I feel, especially with the pandemic, there's so much pain, there's so much isolation going on, that we just want to publicly say, you know, we're here for you. You know, if you need us, reach out, we're here. And I do that sometimes through my writing. Andre does that through, you know, his work, his acting, his script writing. We just want to be a positive light in someone else's life.
Yeah. And you know, what's interesting is that you're talking, I was thinking, what's one word that I would use to describe your writing? And the word that comes to mind is pure. It's pure. It's from the heart. And I think you always have an ability to connect. And even on my end, the feedback we get from River City Rising, people love your writing because it's pure. It's from the heart. It's a positive slant in terms of the way you take even very dark things and you help us to see the good. And at the same time, how do we activate on that? And so it's from a pure place. It's pure. I love it. So for both of you, give me, and CJ, you've already kind of done this a little bit, and even Andre has as well, but give me something that you've learned. We'll start with you, CJ. Give me something that you've learned from Andre.
Wow. So much. I've learned discipline. You know, I've learned to stick with something, and I won't cry on your podcast. But, you know, I've learned to not give up. You know, when we met in LA, we had nothing. We were the epitome of broke artists. You know the LA life. And you go every day. And some days just seem so hopeless. They seem like you're never going to, you know, you take 2 steps forward and then you're punched in the gut and you fall all the way back. You know, and I remember there were days, you know, we were in LA and I'd say, listen, I'm moving back to the Bahamas. This is not working. I'm going to get a little hut on the beach. I don't need much, but I can't do this. And he'd say, no, you can't give up. You know, let's keep going. And it definitely helped for me to have someone, you know, whose hand I could hold to walk with me, you know, through the most difficult times. So I would say one of the biggest, or 2 of the biggest lessons, you know, discipline and persistence, perseverance. He will not allow me to give up. And even with my writing, you know, sometimes there's something I do want to write about and I'm scared to death because it is a touchy subject. You know, it could be considered controversial or I won't say divisive, but people are definitely going to see things one way or the other. And he'll tell me, just go with your heart, go with your gut. So he's the, what would you say, Andre? I always call him the optimist. I'm the realist and he's the optimist because he does not think that there's anything that we cannot do. That's him. Whereas I'm the realist. I'm like, well, I don't know. Okay.
So much similarity between our relationship and you two and your relationship in terms of me and Meredith and like you two. So
oh, really?
I definitely am the Andre and she's definitely the CJ. So what's something that you, Andre, have learned from CJ?
Oh, I mean, her compassion. I mean, I have in my life, and I've met a lot of people. I've never met anyone who is more actively compassionate toward other people. It's a joke in our household between Luke and I. If we see someone in need, and now watch, it's gonna happen even more now because of this. I'm saying that on podcast. If she sees someone in need, whether it's an emotional need, a financial need, it doesn't matter. She's going to stop whatever she's doing, and she's going to tend to their need. She's going to she's going to check in and say, are you okay? We were driving down the street over, leaving Colonial a few weeks ago, and there was a stray dog walking down the street, and she says, oh, look, there's a stray dog. And I said, okay, there's my afternoon. I already knew what's going to happen. The rest of my day is going to be about this dog. And Jeremy, no kidding, so the sun was setting. And we were still trying to coax this dog in with the other half of my sandwich that I hadn't gotten a chance to eat yet, trying to coax him into our car. And she talk about me not stopping. She didn't stop until she knew that dog was safely at the vet and they identified the owner with the little chip thing. And even then, she still didn't stop. She said, call me to tell me that the owners picked the dog up. And the owner didn't pick the dog up. So she went back out there to get the dog and found a permanent home for the dog. But
Wow.
That's just one example of
Yeah,
what it's like
I'm
in
gonna
our
say for
house
listeners,
every day.
the thing is, knowing you two and knowing CJ, like everything you're saying, I can myself like say that's exactly 100% accurate.
100%. You know it.
Yeah.
You know her.
Yeah.
That is who she is. I mean, we see people out all the time. She stops, and if someone's in need of something or hurting, or my son and I we just go, we'll see you in the car, because we know this is gonna take a while. She's not gonna leave until things are okay. But that's something I've learned from that to incorporate into my life, because we do need to sometimes stop and look at one another and just say, check in, are you okay? Because the default response is, oh, I'm cool, I'm good, I'm fine, how are you? But that oftentimes is not the reality of what that person's going through, or what the situation is. She walks into a room, and it's like she scans the place for someone who needs an ear, a shoulder. And I love that about her. I've never met anyone who's consistently like that, and it's just a part of who they are. And that's one thing I try to take a little piece of that. That's kind of hard in New York City, but
Well, no,
I never make it to the theater in time.
I know it drives him crazy when we go to Target, because I'm going to talk to the cashier and
how are you and how's your day, and
Yeah.
but that's why we love you, CJ. So I mean,
yeah, that's why we love you.
Yeah,
that's why we love you.
That's just part of it. So we'll switch over and do kind of a lightning round to wrap up. So short questions, fairly short answers, but we'll give both of you a chance to kind of chime in. What's something that you each like to do to relax?
Oh, together or individually?
Either one.
I love going to the gym. I love working out. I love fitness. Every morning, she's still in the bed, and I roll over, I give her a kiss, and I say, I'm going to the gym. And I go to Harbortown Fitness here in Harbortown. It's a little gym. It's a private gym, but they're keeping everything really clean, and all these quarantine measures. The owner is fantastic about that stuff. So he provides a safe place for me to have an outlet, because when I wasn't working out, I wasn't a happy Andre. So for me, exercise, I love it.
CJ, what about you?
He loves it. Reading, for me, it's reading, and Luke is very much like Andre. They love watching movies. But for me, it's, I want to pick up a book and go into a corner and get lost in what I'm reading.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned together. So what do you like to do to relax together?
We do everything together.
Yeah, we love eating out.
Yeah, that's right. We're foodies. We're big time foodies. We will plan out our entire week as far as breakfast, lunch, dinner, and even snacks in between.
Yeah.
What we're gonna have. We sit up and we watch, those food shows.
Yeah.
We make lists of, we gotta go try that place. We gotta try that place, and then she'll duplicate a lot of the rest of our favorite recipes. So
well, Luke is an aspiring chef himself too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was just this morning. He was like, "Daddy, you got to come watch this show with me," and it's oftentimes something Pokemon related, but instead it was like Final Chef. What was the name of the thing he was trying to give me?
Yeah,
it's one of these cooking competitions where they're cooking stuff that I can't even pronounce,
right.
And he just he sits there with his blanket, and it's like he's watching X-Men or something, or something from the Marvel universe. He's so fixated on that.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so much. It's funny because we paused at the question because there's so much we do together, and we genuinely enjoy being together. It's not that I don't get on his nerves sometimes, or I guess he gets on mine sometimes.
I guess a better question for us would be, what do you not do together? Because
what do we want to,
Yeah, because we do so much together. I think that I definitely watch way more TV than she does. Yeah. She hates it. Sometimes she gets to the point where she says, I can't take the sound of the television for another 5 minutes. And she has to go into her room, like she said, and read. But I think TV, for sure. We don't watch a lot of television together.
Give me a quote or a saying that inspires you?
I guess this is the compassionate side that he was talking about, but the verse in the Bible, and I can't remember the book it's in or the specific verse, but Jesus wept. That is something that, I have a best friend who's going through a difficult fight for her life right now. And Andre will come home and my eyes are red and puffy because I've been crying. And one thing that I had to tell Luke when he was young, and he would see me kind of break down when I was talking about something painful, I always say, well, Jesus cried. It's okay. These aren't always sad tears. These are sometimes happy tears. And so for me, that's such a powerful verse. I know it initially sounds kind of sad, but it's not. Jesus wept. And then for us as Christians, we reflect on what came after and all of the good that happened after his weeping stopped. And that's one of the more powerful verses in my life. Yeah. Of any book. I read lots of books, but of any book, it just happens to be that this quote is from the Bible of all the books that I read.
Andre?
Yeah, for me, because I get so much inspiration and motivation from my family, and I'm a huge fan of the Rocky movies. The first Rocky is my favorite movie of all time. And we even had the theme music playing at our wedding. That's how much we like, at least I love Rocky. Yeah. And there's a scene in the first movie where, I don't know how well you know it, Jeremy, but Sylvester Stallone, he's playing the Rocky character, and he's talking to his best friend. And he's dating his best friend's sister, Adrian. And his best friend goes, I don't get it, man. What do you see in her? And Rocky says, gaps. He says, what's gaps? He goes, I don't know. I got gaps. She got gaps. Together, we fill gaps. And that's how I feel about our relationship. As you mentioned, we work together now. We have this production company together. But even before we did that, we both come from difficult backgrounds. It wasn't easy for either one of us growing up. And what happens in situations like that, you form gaps. You form gaps in your life, in your heart, in your mind. And I think you can go through life, if you don't fill those gaps, you can go through life trying to fill it with the wrong thing. And with us, I think we've just filled each other's gaps so perfectly that we just motivate each other and fuel each other and feed each other. And it's something I hope that I wish everyone could have, and I wish my son could have. And I think that whether you find that in a person or you find that in a profession or something, you need something to fill those gaps, to make you whole and to make you feel like tomorrow I'm going to get out there and I'm going to work harder. I'm going to do it better than I did it today. And that she does that for me. But that quote always, it resonates in my head all the time. Yeah. I got gaps. She got gaps. Together we fill gaps.
Andre just proved my point on the titles that I've given us. He's the optimist. I'm the realist. So I'm talking about crying, oh no, it's part of life. And he's like, oh, but look at how positive everything is, there you go.
This is awesome. All right. So you two being foodies, give me a favorite spot in Memphis and then give me a favorite spot anywhere else. So it could be New York, LA, around the world, wherever you want to throw. So give me a favorite spot you enjoy in Memphis and a favorite spot somewhere else.
Oh, I'll do the somewhere else one. You do the Memphis one.
Oh, for me, Sunrise. It's hands down. I have a few favorites here in Memphis, but I'm speechless, as you can tell. I don't even have the words to say how awesome a restaurant this place is. I have never gone, and we've been quite a bit, and had something that I did not like. If something new comes out, I try it. I've never not liked something that they've pushed out. So Sunrise for me. It's a breakfast brunch restaurant. So they're not open, all day. But yeah, that's my favorite.
Okay. Now, you're not going to expect this coming from a foodie. And we've been to a lot of fantastic places. 5-star restaurants, French Laundry, you know, you name it. My favorite place to go out of town is In-N-Out in Los Angeles. It's an animal style burger with the animal style fries, well done.
Well done, fries.
Lemonade. That's
awesome.
that to me is just LA. That's LA. It's
Yeah.
I mean, I know they have them in other locations now, but when you know, we sort of came into our own in Los Angeles with a lot of other people who were coming into their own at the same time. And a lot of late nights were spent at In-N-Out Burger. So there's an emotional connection to it as well.
Well,
And
for both
this
of you,
has
it's
been a
funny.
great
I mean,
burger.
both of them have stories. So Sunrise, obviously, there's a story as well. And then same thing In-N-Out. So it's not just the food, it's the emotional connection as well.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right, so last two questions for both of you. What would your advice be for someone listening or watching this video who is lost or stuck, has a dream, and needs some encouragement and some advice to follow their dream? What advice would you give them?
I'd say, you know, I had this conversation with my nephew a few weeks ago, and he's graduating from high school, and he's thinking about what should I do with my life, and he's very talented. He can do a lot of different things. And the advice I had for him is something that I learned later in life. And what I said was, imagine if every profession, no matter what it was, actor, doctor, engineer, astronaut, they all paid the same amount of money. Money had nothing to do with it. You had the same schedule, you had the same amount, you had the same salary. What would you want to do for the rest of your life? Find that thing and then pursue it. Because I think a lot of times, you know, we want to be successful. We want to make money. In money in this world, for a lot of people, they think it means happiness, but it doesn't. It absolutely does not. And that can be hard for someone who doesn't have money to hear, but it's the truth. If you're doing something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. That's an old quote, but it's very true. People ask me all the time, how long are you going to be doing this? When do you ever want to retire? And I never want to retire because I'm literally doing my hobby for a living. What would I retire to do? I'm already doing my hobby. So if you find whatever that is for you, whether it's writing, whether it's being an executive at a Fortune 500 company, if you love it and that's what you want to do and you're passionate about that, pursue that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100,000%. CJ, what's your advice?
Yeah. I would say, and this is something that took me a long time to accept and embrace, but I would say take the leap of faith. You know, whatever it is. Here in Memphis, we have a lot of really talented artists, talented actors, singers. And sometimes I'll talk to some of the younger artists or even someone who's, you know, in our age category. And I'll say, why don't you go to New York and, you know, show your pieces? And they're so afraid to move out of the Memphis, you know, scene. And, but to me, I look at their work and I see their work not just as Memphis great, but internationally great. And I just want to push them out, you know, and say, no, go, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. And for me, that took a long time because, you know, when you take that leap of faith, sometimes you fall flat on your face, you know, and you're bleeding and, you know, bruised up. And you're like, well, now what? But what I realized over the years is that somehow, you know, it all ends up being okay. And I think it's, to me, one of the greatest tragedies, I guess, in life is to come across someone who had this dream, who has this gift. It's still there because it doesn't go anywhere. You know, you can be 90 years old and that gift that you have, it's still there. And they didn't pursue it. And now that is one of their life's biggest regrets, is they didn't take that leap of faith to do what it is they wanted to do, you know, whatever that thing is. And, you know, one quote that I do love, well, I'm paraphrasing, but from The Alchemist, you know, when you're pursuing your gifts and dreams, the universe will conspire to help you. You know, I believe that. when I moved to Memphis, I didn't know anyone. I just knew what I wanted to do. I knew, what I wanted to try to accomplish. And you and I met because I went to a function. This is the most, I have to share this. I hope we have time, for this podcast.
There's no time boundary on this, so go ahead.
Okay. It's the most bizarre, but it was just one of those things where everything lined up. But I was in this funk. I'd had Luke. I was trying to get back into my writing career, didn't know anyone here, didn't know what to do. And, cityCURRENT, which was LPBC at the time, was hosting a talk at University of Memphis. And I remember calling Andre and I was like, I'm not going to go. He's like, no, you should go. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go. He's like, go. And so I went. And I was blown away because the speaker was Tom Shadyac. And he was talking about, his epiphany after his accident. And I remember I sat there, and not just me, but there were so many people in the audience, the tears were just coming, and I don't cry all day every day. But, this is another one of those.
That was definitely one that got emotional, no question.
Yeah, and I got home and I just wanted to know who did this, like who brought this guy to Memphis, and it was your company, and that's how we connected. And so I had no idea that the trajectory of my life would literally change just because I went to hear a speaker, because I needed encouragement to continue in my gifts, because I was just in this kind of lost space, after having, tended to Luke for several years, after having him and being in the home, and now wanting to get back out of the home. So for me, that's what, to just bring it all back to what I said initially is take the leap of faith. And Andre and I will say we do try, if, I'll have people call me who want to be actors and stuff. And I'll say, well, let me send you to Andre. That's not really my area. But I don't think we've ever not spoken to someone or returned an email or, this is something you taught me actually is no matter how powerful you may become in the community or in business or whatever area you're in, you always have time to help someone else. We can do that at the very least, because there were so many people that have helped us along the way. The very least we can do is reply to an email from someone who's like, what do I do? Or return a phone call, from an aunt whose niece, wants to be an actor. So we try to do that and live up to that part of our lives being so blessed, is to pay it forward. Yeah, pay it forward, pass it on. But yeah, young people, and I don't care how old you are, you can be in your 40s. If you have always wanted to go to New Mexico and take photographs of the most magnificent red rock, do it. Take the leap of faith and do it.
Yep, absolutely. I love that advice. Last question, and then we'll just talk about contact information for both of you, is you're creating your legacy every single day with what you do, your talents, your gifts, inspiring others. But many years from now, what do you hope your legacy is? And I'll give you grace on it, can be individually or as a family. But what do you hope your legacy is?
I'll let Andre, because I think individually it's the same as what we would want our family, inclusive of Luke, because we're raising him to try and be a certain type of human being. So I'll let Andre.
I want, not just from my family, but for me individually, I want my work and my time spent here on this earth to have impacted the world in such a way that it's a better place after I'm no longer here, whether that's inspiring one person or millions of people. I think if we all looked at the world through the lens of one person could make a huge impact, one individual. I mean, look at what's going on right now with George Floyd. That one man's life or tragic death has changed the world right now. and it's certainly our country. My son and I, we were watching Sesame Street together the other day, and they were doing a town hall, and they talked about Rosa Parks, how this one lady charged this movement. So I want my life to inspire, have an impact that inspires the world to be better because of it.
Do you want to add anything to that, CJ?
I feel the exact same way, the exact same way.
Yeah.
And we're raising Luke to embrace those same ideologies.
Yeah. I think we're all so powerful. I think that most people feel like they themselves is not enough. I need to have this kind of money. I need to have this sort of job. I need to be part of this sort of group. I can't do it on my own. Who am I? But just one person can make an enormous impact, whether it's just making an impact in your family or in your friend circle or the entire world. That's a legacy I think we should all aspire to leaving. Is this person, my life is better because of this person.
Yeah, I agree.
And we
Absolutely.
can.
Wrap up and talk about where people can go to learn more. I know that each of you have your own website, so talk about website and social media, and where do we go?
So I'm CJ at cjkirkland.com. The website is cjkirkland.com. And Andre?
Yeah, I'm Andre at andrejackson.com, and that's my website, andrejackson.com. And they can find both of us at grandchildproductions.com. And there are links there to projects we're working on, things we've done, who we are, and links to our respective websites.
Yeah, and I think for social media, I know for social media, I'm the same, CJ Kirkland. And Andre, you are...
Yeah, I'm the same on everything, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah,
it's
everything's the same.
Yeah, I'm Andre Jackson.
Yeah.
I am Andre Jackson.
You two are very well branded, which is good in terms of being able to find you. So you're easy to find, easy to follow.
We keep it simple.
Listen,
I
I have Andre to thank for that. Because when it comes to technology,
Look, I love you too. I appreciate everything you do, for sharing your gifts and your talents, for having a heart of just pure gold, wanting to make a difference. And like you said, leave this world and our community in a better place. And you're doing that every single day by sharing your gifts and your time. So thank you so much for coming on this podcast, for everything you do. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. And definitely look forward to continuing this conversation in the future. So thank you very much for being on the Change Maker podcast.
Definitely, man. Thanks. This has been so much fun. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you for listening to the Changemakers podcast, produced by cityCURRENT and brought to you by Lipscomb & Pitts Insurance. To learn more about our guests and share your stories of others leading by example, visit us online at citycurrent.com or follow us on social media using @citycurrent. Please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you listen. Now, think big, start small, and act now. Be a change maker.